Hello, wonderful people. This is Stephanie Nadolny for Wonderbot Animals, and here is... Woman that rescues a kitten quickly learns it's not what she expected. Before we begin, make sure to click the like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification button for more amazing videos. If you're an animal lover, it's basically impossible to look the other way when you see an animal in need. However, this powerful urge can actually sometimes get us humans into trouble. Recently, a Tennessee woman took a walk on the wild side when she rescued a sweet little kitten. Or so she thought. Jill Hicks is a real animal lover. She has a rescue dog and cat at home and spends a lot of her time tending to them. That's why she didn't even pause when she saw a cute pair of paws on her way to dinner one night. She had been driving down the busy highway to meet a friend, as she had done plenty of times before. Suddenly, she noticed a small animal scurrying down the road, dangerously close to the passing cars. Jill slammed on her brakes. Before she could stop herself, Jill was standing in the middle of the road attempting to secure what she first thought was a baby bunny. Traffic was stopped by the time Jill had the tiny fluff ball securely in her arms. But once she had the animal, she knew it wasn't a bunny. It was clearly a little kitten. She was so relieved to have saved it from the busy highway and decided she immediately had to bring it home. Dinner would have to wait. The kitten was not happy once it was in the car. It began to crawl all around the back seat and on her shoulders. She thought she would calm down once they were home. However, there was one thing Jill hadn't thought through. When she got home, she realized she couldn't bring the kitten inside because of her other animals. Jill decided to keep the kitten sequestered in the safety of the garage, where she had plenty of kitty supplies on hand. Before heading off to dinner, she made sure the kitten had everything it needed. Then, she quickly snapped a few pictures of the animal and posted them on social media, hoping someone would want to adopt her. Well, she got a major surprise. A couple of hours later, she returned from dinner and parked. When she got out of her car, she heard her neighbor calling, "Do you still have that cat?" they asked urgently. Jill led her to the garage. It didn't take long for Jill's neighbor to deduce what Jill had missed the entire time. The sweet kitten she had rescued wasn't actually a kitten at all. She was something much more ferocious. It turns out that the furry fugitive was actually a wild bobcat. In hindsight, that seemed pretty obvious due to the shape of her ears and the tiny puff of the tail she had. Jill couldn't believe her mistake, which she now had to remedy. The little cat began showing her true nature as she started to growl and hiss. Jill decided it was important that she amend the post she had made to include one minor detail, that the kitten was not a kitten at all. That night, Jill didn't want to leave the defenseless animal on her own, so she elected to sleep in the garage. She checked on her throughout the night to be sure she was safe. The next day, she would make a plan. After breakfast the next day, Jill contacted a local wildlife rescue organization called For Fox's Sake. They took the animal in and let Jill know she was about 7 weeks old before revealing how lucky the cat turned out to be. The animal, now named Arwen, was very sick. Because of the early separation from her mother, she was suffering from anemia and other issues. Arwen was immediately placed in intensive care, and all Jill could do was watch and hope for the best. Ideally, every baby animal should be with their mother, but for Arwen, there was no way to find out where her home den was, as she was found by the highway. The professionals did the next best thing by watching her health closely. After the first few days in intensive care, Arwen began to change, becoming more and more aggressive to humans. Strangely, this was great news. A healthy bobcat is supposed to be naturally defensive when it comes to mankind. Sadly for Jill, she was barred from contact with her bobcat pal while she was getting rehabilitated. The organization planned to release Arwen back into the wild once she was fully healthy and able to protect herself in the wild. Although she knew that it was best for Arwen, Jill missed the sassy little cat she fostered for a restless night. "She stole a little piece of my heart that day, and she'll have it forever," Hicks said. Recently, Jill got an update on Arwen after she'd spent 1 month at the facility. The caretaker said she was exhibiting normal cat behaviors, and was on the fast track to living her life out in the wild, as was intended. Jill Hicks continued to be an animal advocate who fostered when she could. Her quick thinking that day helped save the life of an animal in danger, no matter how wild it ended up being. Jill wasn't alone when it came to mistaking this little guy for a household pet either. When a Tucson, Arizona man saw a sign on the house that said, "Free dog," he decided to knock on the door. The moment he saw the puppy's big amber eyes and perky little ears, he knew he had to adopt the little guy. The puppy, whom he named Neo, turned out to be a bigger handful than he had bargained for. Neo was often very skittish, difficult to house train, and demanded the man's attention all the time, which was difficult because he was a student who also worked full-time. When the man was out of the house, he would leave Neo in the backyard, but the puppy refused to stay put. The pup would dig his way out or jump the fence to get into the neighbor's yard and play with their dogs. His owner built a higher fence, but Neo soon chewed through it. What Neo's owner didn't realize yet was that Neo wasn't a dog, but a wolf dog. To make matters worse, he was high content, meaning that genetically, Neo was more wolf than dog. His amber eyes and lanky body were reminiscent of a wolf's, but it was his behavior that was the bigger giveaway. Neo wasn't interested in interacting with people besides his owner, but his wolf-like desire to find his pack meant he was always visiting the neighbors' dogs. At first, the neighbors tolerated Neo's visits, but he began to become a nuisance, and one day they decided they'd had enough. The neighbors threw Neo on a leash and drove him to the Humane Society. They hoped that the shelter would be able to hold him until they worked out something with the owner to get the canine's behavior under control. A worker who was standing outside the building when they arrived saw Neo and instantly knew that he was no dog. His long, lanky body was one clue, but what struck her most was the way he nervously avoided human interaction. She asked the perplexed-looking owners if they knew that wasn't a dog on their leash, and they admitted that they'd had their own suspicions. The Humane Society looked into Arizona's wolf dog ownership laws and found that in order to legally own one, you needed to have a special permit that was difficult to obtain. They decided to get in touch with Wolf Connection, a California wolf dog rescue and sanctuary, to see if they could take Neo. Luckily, there was space, so all the Humane Society had to do was get in touch with Neo's original owner. After talking it over, he decided to give up Neo, realizing the wolf dog would never truly adjust to his life in Tucson. Neo was in great physical shape when he arrived at the sanctuary, but the workers still tried to keep him isolated until their veterinarian could give him medical clearance to be around the other wolves and wolf dogs. However, Neo was as eager as ever to find his pack, and he quickly managed to escape the isolated kennel. He immediately went to the alpha female Maya's territory to try to make friends. On his very first night at the sanctuary, he joined the evening wolf howl that occurs when workers leave for the day. It seemed that Neo had finally found his place. While rescuing an animal in need might go without saying, knowing when to let one go is a whole other thing.